is Treasurer Josh Frydenberg. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Nat. Good morning, Nat.
So overnight, Facebook is replacing all the charity sites, the emergency service sites that were taken off yesterday. News is still black banned. They are digging in. What are you going to do?
Well, this was never meant to be easy, otherwise other countries would have moved a long time ago. We're trying to succeed here in Australia where others have failed, and what we're trying to do is to create a level playing field and to protect public interest journalism with this world-leading media bargaining code. Now, as you know, earlier this week, major news organisations like Seven West have entered into agreements with Google to see their content paid for, and that's a really positive development that wouldn't have occurred without this bargaining code being on the table. Now, with Facebook, I've had a number of constructive discussions with Mark Zuckerberg. He contacted me last night about having another discussion today, so that will hopefully occur and we'll work through the remaining issues. But Australia's resolve remains very strong, very firm. This is in the national interest. It's been a part of a very long process over the last couple of years. There's been continuous negotiations between the government and the parties with the regulators as well, the ACCC, and we are determined to see this legislation become law.
Treasurer, fascinated to know how that call played out last night with Mark Zuckerberg. So he contacted you, and I imagine you expressed your great frustration on behalf of all the Australian charities and vital services that have been cut off by this. I mean, exactly what did you two talk about?
Well, we spoke yesterday morning, and obviously I expressed my deep disappointment as to what Facebook had done, and you've heard from the government, from the Prime Minister down, about our resolve here and our determination to proceed. But at the same time, we viewed those actions yesterday as unnecessary, as heavy-handed, as wrong, and as damaging the reputation of Facebook here in Australia. I mean, to restrict access to the New South Wales Fire and Rescue, or to restrict access to the Royal Children's Hospital or other important sites is very problematic, and it was a heavy-handed tactic. Now, he and I will speak again this morning and we'll see if we can work through some of the issues, but our commitment remains very firmly to implement the code, and we'll see if Facebook remains at the table.
And what if they don't?
Well, if they don't, and the code becomes law, and I proceed to designate Facebook as a service to which the code applies, then they could be left going into arbitration. But again, let's firstly have these discussions today, then let's pass the law through the Parliament and see where we go. I mean, again, I reiterate, Nat, this is a world first. Australia is leading the world with this bargaining code, and the world's eyes are very much on us.
You can see why it'll set the precedent for all the other countries to have to pay, for the payments to have to go to the other countries as well. Treasurer, can I ask you about another issue? The Australian reporting today that the government could legislate an increase to JobSeeker, this is as soon as next week, as targeted packages for industries that are currently reliant on JobKeeper. Will that be signed off on today by Cabinet's Budget Committee?
Well, I'm not going to obviously go into details of the Expenditure Review Committee, other than to say that the intention is for JobKeeper to end in March. It was always a temporary program. It was always designed to come to an end as the economy strengthened. And yesterday we saw jobs numbers for the month of January, which saw 29,000 full-time jobs being created. We saw the unemployment rate falling from 6.6% to 6.4%, beating market expectations. And we saw the underemployment rate get to its lowest level since 2014. So the fact that the virus is being brought under control and that federal government support is at an unprecedented level is helping to drive a very strong recovery in our jobs market, and that's a good thing.
Lastly, there's an explosive text message sent by a Liberal staffer to Brittany Higgins. It has surfaced today. It's on the front page of the Australian newspaper. Here it is. It suggests the Prime Minister's office was made aware of her 2019 rape allegation shortly after the incident, not last week, as he has been telling Parliament this week. Why hasn't the government been more transparent about this?
Well, the Prime Minister has. He's given a statement to the House, and where he has set out a process to generate, to lead to cultural change within Parliament House. He's a number of steps to do that, including the Deputy Secretary of the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet undertaking a review. There's going to be an independent review as well into the culture in Parliament House, right across party political lines. And then we've also got one of our own colleagues, Celia Hammond, who's been a Vice-Chancellor of the University of Notre Dame and has had experience in dealing with these sort of important issues at a institutional level, and she's going to be also working with the colleagues. And
that's great, but that text message says exactly the opposite of what our Prime Minister has told Parliament this week.
Well, he made a statement to Parliament. I'm not aware of any difference to that statement.
Well, that text says the opposite. It says he knew 2 weeks after the rape allegation. His office knew.
Well, firstly, it doesn't say he knew.
It says his office knew.
And I'm sure there'll be differing interpretations of that message. What I will say is that he gave a statement to the Parliament, and he has focused on the way forward for the Parliament and to a way to improve the culture. And I think that's very important.
OK. Well, we thank you very much for your time, Treasurer, this morning. We know you've got another interview to go to.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, coming